It's this fatherly love of his. He keeps reaching out to us. And this time, it's interesting. Is there something for humankind to do in order to keep the covenant? Not really. He sets the bow in the sky. He's putting out there, I will always be your father, even if you choose not to be my child. Even if you reject me. I want you to be my child, right? But I'm going to keep up my relationship with you as father no matter what. Okay, and you can count on me. You can trust in me. And I set my bow in the sky, and every time you see the rainbow, right? Actually, every time you see it start to rain, we're supposed to be thinking, oh no, it's raining. It's going to be another flood. We deserve it because of our sinfulness. He's going to wipe out the face of the earth again. We deserve it. And then we see the rainbow, and then we remind ourselves, oh, but no, he promised he'd never do that again. Isn't that wonderful? And then we reflect on the goodness and the generosity and the love of God and say, you know what? I think I do want to be in relationship with this God. He cares so much about me. Right? That's what happens, isn't it? Every time you see a rainbow?
Yes.
Yeah, literally, that's what happens to me every time. Yes. Okay, next 10 generations later, okay, after Noah, we get to another person. And this person's named Abram. Okay, I know his name changes later, but for now it's Abram. Okay? Abram is called the father of faith. The father of faith, okay, because he had tremendous faith. And what's interesting is God gives him a promise, okay? And I wrote out the whole promise, and we're going to read through it right now. Genesis 12, 1-3. God says, I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, so that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and curse those who curse you. All the communities of the earth shall find blessing in you. Okay, God makes this promise to him. And what's interesting is that each of these promises is raised to the status of a covenant when God swears an oath. And he does it 3 times, okay, with Abram. He actually swears 3 covenant oaths with Abram. Isn't that amazing? Okay, so he gives them this promise, and he swears three covenant oaths. But what's interesting is that he doesn't fulfill these promises or these covenant oaths with Abram. He lets the next 3 covenant mediators find fulfillment. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what each of these promises are, and then we're going to go through the rest of the sheet. Okay? So Genesis 15, verse 7 to 21. Okay? It says, when the sun had set, well, actually, let me prefigure this. Okay? Actually, this is one of my favorite passages. I think it's so cool. Because Abram is out with God. And Abram, remember, he was a tribal chieftain. So they were nomadic. They'd watch the stars, and they would travel through the land, and they know where they were located because of the stars, right? And here's what it says, okay? Verse 5, chapter 15, verse 5. Okay, I'll just read it for you. He took him outside, this is God. God took Abram outside and said, look up at the sky and count the stars, if you can. He didn't do the laugh, I just... Just so, he added, shall your descendants be. Abram put his faith in the Lord, who credited it to him as an act of righteousness. Okay. Now what's interesting, here's the key. You go down to verse 7, I'll give you this land, you know, and he promises this huge piece of land. And then verse 13, it says, then the Lord said to Abram, know for certain that your descendants shall be aliens in a land not their own. Okay, he goes on and on. They're going to be oppressed and enslaved for 400 years. but I will bring judgment. And then again, time passes, and then we get to verse 17. Okay? Verse 17 says, when the sun had set and it was dark. So when Abram was taken out by God and told to look up at the sky, and he says, count the stars, if you can.
In the daytime?
It was daytime, right? Sneaky, sneaky, sneaky. Okay, God knows that Abram knows that those stars are there. But it's impossible to count them because you can't see them. You can't see them. Just so shall your descendants be. They are there. You can be 100% certain that they are there. You just can't see them. Okay? And if you have faith in me as you have faith in those stars, all things will be well. And that's when Abram put his faith in God, and God credited it to him as an act of righteousness, and then swore this covenant oath. Take a look, verse 17. And that's what you have on your sheets now, okay? The covenant. When the sun had set and it was dark, there appeared a smoking brazier and a flaming torch, which passed between those pieces. I should preface this by saying there were 7 animals that were chopped in half. Okay? 7 is the swearing of a covenant oath. Okay? And so you have these 7 pieces, and now you have this flaming torch. Smoke and fire always represents God's presence. You'll see that throughout the entire Old and New Testament. Okay? And the torch passed between those pieces. It was on that occasion that the Lord made a covenant. You see, he made a covenant with Abram, saying, to your descendants I give this land, from the Wadi of Egypt to the great river the Euphrates, the land of the Kenites, the Kenizzites, the Kadamites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Rephaim, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Gerishites, and the Jebusites. Are you impressed with that? I practiced, yeah. Okay, I promise to give this land, right? What's interesting here is we have an amazing prefigurement, you could say, of the whole Paschal mystery. Because what normally happens when you divide those animal pieces, right, and you walk through it, you're not allowed to walk alone. Both parties that are swearing the covenant have to walk through that together. And what they're saying to each other is, if I would break this covenant that I'm making with you today, if I ever betray you, may I be torn apart like these animal pieces here. Okay? But isn't it amazing that God alone walks through? He doesn't let Abram walk through. In other words, he's saying, if for any reason this covenant between you and me is broken, and we know who's the one that's going to break it, it's not God, right? I will take up the punishment. I will allow myself to be torn apart. Okay? And we see that fulfilled in Christ on the cross, right? Ripped apart. And so we have a beautiful, beautiful sign of what's to come. But just how amazing God is for actually entering into this covenant with us. Right? Do you see that? Okay, so there's the first covenant. And he promised land. Did you notice? That was the first promise. If you look at Genesis 12 on your sheet, it says, I will make of you a great nation. And then he gives them the land in which they can become a great nation. And who is the person who will lead them into the promised land and give them this land? Moses. So that covenant is going to be fulfilled through Moses. The next promise that was given, it says, I will make your name great so that you will be a blessing. When you take a look at, when you think of someone's name being great, you've got to think of like a dynasty, okay? Like the Kennedys or the...
Lazaritas.
Sorry?
Rimpart, Lazaritas.
The Lazaritas. Oh, okay, we're thinking of big. Okay, we got to think like the House of Windsor, right? That's a royal dynasty, or the Ming dynasty in China, right? That's what we're talking about. Your name is going to be great. So if you're associated with this name, people are going to be impressed. Okay? So that's the second promise. And if you take a look at Genesis chapter 17, verses 1 to 16, okay, and I've got that written out for you too. This is what happens when Abram was 99 years old. God visits him and tells him he's going to have a son. Do you remember that? Okay. And at that time, he says in verse 5, no longer shall you be called Abram, your name shall be Abraham. For I am making you the father of a host of nations. I will render you exceedingly fertile. I will make nations of you. Kings shall stem from you. Which dynasty do you think he's promising here? Which is the greatest of the Israelite dynasties? The house of David. The Davidic dynasty. That's a monarchy. Okay, so that's what he's talking about. Kings shall stem from you. Okay? I will maintain my covenant with you and your descendants after you throughout the ages as an everlasting pact, to be your God and the God of your descendants after you. I will give to you and to your descendants after you the land in which you are now staying, the whole land of Canaan, as a permanent possession, and I will be their God. And he continues on. God also said to Abraham, on your part, oh, now we have it, okay? The first covenant with Abram, he walked through alone. This time, they have something to do. They have the second half of the covenant, okay? On your part, you and your descendants after you must keep my covenant throughout the ages. This is my covenant with you and your descendants after you that you must keep. Every male among you shall be circumcised. Circumcise the flesh of your foreskin, and that shall be the mark of the covenant between you and me. Throughout the ages, every male among you, when he is 8 days old, shall be circumcised, including houseborn slaves and those acquired with money from any foreigner who is not of your blood. Yes, both the houseborn slaves and those acquired with money must be circumcised. Thus my covenant shall be in your flesh as an everlasting pact. Okay? If a male is uncircumcised, that is, if the flesh of his foreskin has not been cut away, such a one shall be cut off from his people. He has broken my covenant. Okay? He's broken my covenant. So this second promise of a great name, God asks for them to maintain their side of the covenant through circumcision. Okay? It will be a covenant in the flesh. Isn't that interesting? That's important when we get to the last covenant. Just kind of keep that in your minds, right? That God is giving them a covenant in flesh and blood. Okay? So we'll just leave that for now and move on. Make sense? Okay, the third promise, all the communities of the earth shall find blessing in you. So a universal blessing. All the earth, imagine. And that is made into a covenant in Genesis 22. Now this is an amazing story, the sacrifice of Isaac. Do you remember that? That's a great story. And we're just going to take a look at the very end and verse, what you have on your sheet. Genesis 22, 16 to 18. I swear by myself, declares the Lord, that because you acted as you did, and not withholding from me your beloved Son, I will bless you abundantly. And in your descendants all the nations of the earth shall find blessing. Okay? Again, one-sided. God alone is going to take care of this. Okay? But he promises that through the fulfillment of this promise, all the nations of the earth will find blessing. So we know that the first promise of a great nation is fulfilled through Moses. The great name is going to be fulfilled through David, right? Through whom will we find universal blessing? Jesus. Very good. You all get 2 points.